everybody. Peace and blessings. Welcome to my very first episode of Quotables, where I grab a book from my bookshelf and review a few of my highlights and insights from the information I've read. As you can see from the photo, I'll be delving into Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower. Now, the version I have is a graphic novel, so this story varies slightly from the normal book, but the overall story is the same. I'm just going to read a quick blurb that I found online about this book, and then I'll get into sharing my quotes and insights. In this graphic novel adaptation of Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower, the author portrays a searing vision of America's future. In the year 2024, the country is marred by unattended environmental and economic crises that lead to social chaos. Lauren Olamina, a preacher's daughter living in Los Angeles, is protected from danger by the walls of her gated community. However, in a night of fire and death, what begins as a fight for survival soon leads to something much more, a startling vision of human destiny and the birth of a new faith. So I read this book a while back, and I don't remember all of the details, but if my memory serves me clearly, the story follows the main character, Lauren, in her journey towards survival after a bunch of wild hoodlums broke into her gated community and forced her out on the lam. So just to help paint a clearer picture, in this story, the world is on fire. The government has failed. Corporate institutions have failed. It's every man for himself out here. And it was interesting when I read this book because I had purchased this book over the past 2 years. So it was during the pandemic. And when I read the book initially it felt very timely. So the story is just, it's a dystopian world. There's a note on the back cover where someone's quoted saying that this book pairs well with 1984 and The Handmaid's Tale. So if you have any idea of what those are about, then this is in that same wheelhouse. But the world is on fire. The infrastructure of America is done. Completely just finished. It's just nothing is left. What I imagined when I read this book, I don't know if it's the colors of the fire, the oranges and the reds and the browns, but I initially thought California Love by Tupac, the video. And I know that the video, if I'm not mistaken, references Mad Max's Thunderdome, maybe? I don't know. But I tend to see images of music videos since that's a part of my childhood. So that's what I imagined when I saw the book cover, but it's a world on fire. And in the place where she lives, the people, maybe they were well-to-do, I forget, but they were able to create a gated community where they had their own food and they had their own church and they had everything that they needed, but the rapists and the pillagers and the murderers, they found their way to their place, breached the community, and pretty much just killed as many people as they could. And the few survivors form a pack, and they go out into the world beyond the walls, and they are on a journey to finding, there's a corporate town that has work, like low paying, like maybe factory work or something like that, but they provide housing for the people who make it there. But that's the trick, that's the thing. A lot of people don't make it to the town because this wild world that they're living in, the wild, wild west, people are eating people here. Like people are, animals are eating people. People are eating people. People are killing and robbing people. Like, it's crazy here. So they have to make it to the town. And, as they journey toward this town, they learn about each other. They meet other people. And, little by little, the survivors and the people that they come across, they create their own new community. And Lauren Olamina, just to remind, she is the preacher's daughter. And her father, he was the preacher at the community church within their gated community. But she also was creating and developing her own religious system on the side. And she created her own holy book, which is called Earthseed, the Books of the Living. So I remember when I first read this book, this quote, which is the first few lines of the story, drew me in. It reads, "All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change." I shall repeat. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. Fun fact, much of that quote, minus a few words, was my Instagram bio for a good while, until I became more active lately. I updated it to something that felt more relevant, but I always found that pretty profound. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. So everything that you put your hands on, everything that I consider touch, touching with your eyes, touching with your hands, your voice, your mouth, your words, touch is beyond just your hands. So anything that you have an impact on, you change. But that thing also reflects and has an impact on you. And change is the only constant. So if change is everything, then I can see how, if God is everything, that change could be God. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. I like thinking thoughts like that, just, contemplating things like that. It feels like a brain massage to me. So I like that. My next quotable is, God can't be resisted or stopped, but can be shaped and focused. This means God is not to be prayed to. So, God, which can't be resisted or stopped, sounds to me like a force, something beyond our control. First thing that comes to mind is a tornado. It can't be resisted or stopped, but can be shaped and focused like a funnel, like a tornado. But when it says it can be shaped and focused, I interpret that the same way as like a camera. How a camera can focus on, a set of scenery, and how the camera will only capture, the frame will only capture a portion of the scenery. The scenery itself still exists, but the camera can only capture an aspect of it. And we can find an aspect of God to focus on and enjoy the observations of that image or those aspects, but it should not be prayed to, because it is ever changing and it's moving on its own accord. So like worshiping the wind, it's constantly moving. What exactly are you praying to? The destruction that it left behind? I don't know. So while I personally don't see God in this way, I can follow this train of thought and, contemplate it as well. So I get it. But I thought that was pretty interesting. My next quotable is, our only real relationship with God is to shape God and to accept and work with the shapes God imposes on us. So another idea of reflection. Our only real relationship with God is to shape God and to accept and work with the shapes God imposes on us. So we view God and, based on, not saying this is absolute truth, but based on, this statement, we create a real relationship with God when we choose to shape God, when we choose to create the vision, when we decide on the area that we want to set for this frame of, the photo that we're taking of everything, of the all. We shape God, and we have a relationship with God when we accept the frame that we've captured, and we work with the images or the aspects of this, the still that we've captured, and let it impose on us and let it affect us. So just keeping up with that analogy, it's our job to locate the image within the scene and work with that image, the image that feels the most real, the most correct, and the most true to our heart and mind's eye. That's the way that you create a real relationship with God. So again, not saying that these things are absolute truth, just some things to think about, and I can dig that. My next quotable is from the Holy Book, Earthseed, the Books of the Living. And just to be clear, the Earthseed book is basically a character in the story, not an actual book, at least not to my knowing. But the next quote, it states, "A victim of God may, through learning adaptation, become a partner of God." So a victim of God may become a partner of God through learning adaptation or adaption. A victim of God may, through forethought and planning, become a shaper of God, or a victim of God may, through short-sightedness and fear, remain God's victim, God's plaything, God's prey. So what I enjoyed about this quote is how much it makes sense if you swap out God and put change in its place. So then it would read, "A victim of change may, through learning adaptation, become a partner of change. A victim of change may, through forethought and planning, become a shaper of change. Or a victim of change may, through short-sightedness and fear, remain change's victim, change's plaything, change's prey." So, if one can adapt to change, they can become a partner of change or their fate. If one is thoughtful and creates a plan, they can shape their fate. And the things that change become predictable because they were thoughtful and they planned it out. But if one is short-sighted and fearful, they remain change's lunch. Change chews them up and spits them out because they didn't adapt, plan, or foresee what change or what God had in store. Can we predict change, or better yet, predict God? Lauren says so, and I'll be finishing up in just a few moments, but a little bit further into the story, the main character, Lauren, is having a conversation with another character when Lauren says, "Things are changing. People change the climate of the world. The old days aren't coming back." To which the other character replied, "You don't know that. You can't read the future. No one can." And Lauren responded, "Yes, you can. It's scary, but once you get past the fear, it's easy." What I like about this quote is that it fits the story, but it also fits life. Things are indeed changing. People with their mindsets and goals and dreams and desires and afflictions have caused the physical and spiritual climate of this world to change. And the old days will never be seen again. We simply cannot and will not be going back to any past versions of what was. The new normal, they say. And she's correct. Once we get over the fear, we can easily see that the past will never be the same. Fear stops us from looking change in the face. People change Times change. Everything changes. We change. And when we aren't brave enough to realize or make real with our eyes that things aren't what they were, we remain stuck and we become victims of change. So, be a victor, be victorious, and brave and strong, even when it's scary. Be a partner of change. Be a partner of God. So that's all for now. There's so much more I could discuss on this book, but I'm just going with the flow, and I'll see which book from my shelf draws me in next. Maybe I'll circle back to this one. I don't know. But in the meantime, take great care of yourself. Be kind. Remember to breathe and hydrate, and smile up at the sun as it smiles upon you. Until next time, peace.